All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Welcome to another Launch Minnesota Friday Forum. We are happy to have you. And today we are going to be discussing innovation in food and agriculture. I think food and ag is one of Minnesota's most vibrant, historically and currently, one of our most vibrant industries. So I'm excited to have a wonderful group assembled to discuss some of the resources available to people in this area. We have quite a few people who have volunteered to share resources this morning, and I'm very excited about that. It may be the largest panel that have ever volunteered to be part of the Launch Minnesota Friday Forum, which I think really goes to show, is a testament to the energy and excitement in the area. So I am going to just go in alphabetical order of the organizations, and then feel free to speak out, introduce yourself, and just like a little 1 minute overview of what your organization is. Let's start with 4Access Partners.
Yeah, thank you, Maddie. This is John Mendish, and I lead a group called 4Access Partners. We bring volunteer expertise from the likes of General Mills, Cargill, other food entities, and deliver that pro bono to female and BIPOC-led food entrepreneurs in the Twin Cities. We've been doing it for about 3 years now, and it comes on the heels of different nonprofit that we had started called Partners in Food Solutions, which does the very same thing, bringing expertise from large food entities, in that case, to fledgling food companies in 12 countries in Africa. So we've done the work in Africa for 15 years, helped over 2,000 food companies that spawned 4Access Partners locally. And I think we've engaged the likes of about 75 female and BIPOC food entrepreneurs thus far.
That's awesome. Thanks, John. AURI.
Hi, good morning, Maddie. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jason Robinson. AURI stands for the Agricultural Utilization Research Institute. We are a mission-based nonprofit corporation created by the Minnesota State Legislature in 1989 to help farmers through their revenue crisis they experienced in the 80s. But the way we do that is not by directly helping farmers in their production activities, but rather by supporting the commercialization of value-added ag innovations. Our mission is to accelerate the expansion of the agricultural economy by empowering expanded uses and markets of agriculturally derived products. And we do this by offering direct technical support, conducting public domain initiatives meant to catalyze new activity, or to solve ecosystem gaps, and by convening forums to bring producers, processors, and support organizations together. We have, like I said, we've been around for 35 plus years. We have teams that work in both the bioindustrial world as well as in the food world with significant corporate expertise. And we also have facilities that are based in Marshall, Minnesota, Waseca, Minnesota, and Crookston, Minnesota, along with our Twin Cities-based food science and engineering resources here. So we are available for support and regularly talk to anywhere between 100 and 150 different entrepreneurs on an annual basis.
And I'll just chime in. I'm Lali Okino. I'm also from AURI. I am on the technical team. I'm a food scientist. And so we have our technical team represented as well as our business development team that Jason represents.
Great. Thank you both. Elevate Hennepin.
Good morning. My name is Michelle McKinney, and I'm with Hennepin County and Elevate Hennepin. Elevate Hennepin is an initiative that incorporates three different pillars. One is our website that provides resources to small businesses. Another is our cohort learning opportunities based upon stage of business. And what we're probably most known for is that we provide one-on-one, no-cost consulting and advising services to businesses in Hennepin County. We are industry agnostic, but we do have attorneys, marketing specialists, business strategists, and a variety of other consulting experts who serve the food industry. And we have one advisor, Victor Jones, who you'll hear from later, who provides industry-specific consulting services through Elevate Hennepin. And all of our services are no cost. So thanks. Thanks for having me join.
Awesome. Thanks, Michelle. Green Seam. Or wait, sorry, I skipped over the Good Acre.
We skipping over Goodacre, you're saying?
Oh, I apologies to Green Seam for calling you out too soon. Anyone from the Good Acre want to share?
I don't think they're on yet.
I don't think so either. Okay, sorry, Green Seam, you're up.
Hands up.
Good morning, everybody. Sam Ziegler with Green Seam. We're economic development focused on food and ag, mostly southern Minnesota, but we do stretch other places as well to fill some gaps. But our economy is really driven by food and ag in Minnesota. When you really look at the total ecosystem from what people are manufacturing, what professional services, all the way down to the production standpoint. So we try to bridge and connect the gaps that help in there from the startups, which we'll talk about more today, all the way to college and high school programs that focus on the industry that we're have very prevalent here. And so we're a young organization, but here to put the boots on the ground and really connect the total ecosystem.
Great, thanks, Sam. And Allison with Naturally Minnesota.
Sure, and I'll just plug for the Good Acre. I think most people probably know who they are, but they're one of the largest food hubs. They're based in St. Paul, Minnesota, just north of the State Fair, and they work with farmers to aggregate produce. They do CSAs, they work on market development opportunities. They have a commercial kitchen there that makers can use. And so a wonderful figurehead in the food industry. So anyone else can chime in as well to support, but I will plug for them. Allison Hahn, Executive Director of Naturally Minnesota, formerly Grown North. We're a nonprofit that lives at the Holmes Center of Entrepreneurship at the Carlson School of Business at the U of M. We're a sister organization to the Minnesota Cup, which many people are familiar with. We very much try to act as the front door to the food and ag ecosystem here in Minnesota. So unlike other orgs who have consultants or economic development agencies, we're really about connecting and convening and providing educational support. So we do work with companies up and down the entire value chain from on-farm to on-shelf, but we do over-index in the natural product CPG side. We are Naturally Minnesota because we are part of the broader Naturally Network, which has 10 chapters across the country. So there's programming we have that are national programs. Two I'll plug right now at Supply Side West, which is an ingredient big conference trade show in October. If there's a brand that's looking to figure out how do I do better with my ingredients and my COGS and things like that, they do a scholarship program where they pay for their flight, hotel, and badge access and set up meetings and things for them on site during that. So it's a hugely wonderful opportunity. So if you have brands that need that type of support, I would have them apply. And then they also have applications open for the MO Fellowship, which is the minority owned fellowship. So for founders of color who have CPG brands, that's another great opportunity. But we do about 40 events a year. A lot of them are educational workshop focused. A lot of them are big networking events. So we like to kind of bring everybody together to have that party in the collision to make sure everybody can network together. And then we also have a later stage accelerator focused around sustainable protein for companies in the 5 to 50 million revenue range. And we also have Food Ag Ideas Week, which is our annual conference happening in October this year, which will be all about regenerative agriculture and specifically the market development side for that. I also meet with hundreds of entrepreneurs every year, hundreds of industry folks every year, and very much like to act as the Rolodex. So I always tell people, if you meet with a food entrepreneur, please do connect them to us, and then I'm happy to meet with them and help navigate them to the right resources at the right time.
Mm-hmm. Naturally Minnesota is wonderful. I mean, whenever I tell anyone, you know, oh, I'm a food and ag entrepreneur, where do I start? I say, oh, you got to go to Naturally Minnesota because they know everyone else. And Allison helped convene all of us here today. So thank you, Allison. I appreciate it.
I appreciate the plug. It's all about trickling down to everybody else. So
absolutely. Yeah. Anyone here from Renewing the Countryside?
Hi, Are we next in alphabetical order? I was surprised by that.
Yeah, yes, you are. Go ahead.
Okay, excellent. Great. Happy to be here. Thanks, and enjoying hearing all of this great energy from and resources from everyone. My name is Elena Byrne, and I work for Renewing the Countryside, which has a wide range of programs that are all based on supporting agriculture in various ways. And the thing that we do most for food businesses is as a co-founder of the Feast Local Foods Network, which is an ad hoc network of many organizations, businesses, and individuals committed to growing that sustainable local and regional food system. And I'm very happy to have several of our partners on the call here today, AURI and Naturally Minnesota, and Sam with Green Seam have all been part of our programs. We most noticeably host 2 large annual events. We have a public-facing festival in the fall, which is very exciting because it brings together about 100 food businesses all under one roof, which is amazing. And I'm always sad that it goes by so quickly in one day. But it's a great local food shopping event and an opportunity for those businesses to see each other, see others' branding and others' booths and how they do that, and make sales. And we're working to add more onto that. We focus a lot on peer network and bringing those businesses together to learn from each other. And the other event that we hold has more opportunity for that, which is our B2B Feast Local Foods Trade Show that's held in the spring. We've had it in Cannon Falls for 3 consecutive years, and we will have it again in Cannon Falls next spring, which we haven't officially announced yet. But then the third leg of Feast's most significant work is the magazine that we put together annually, which this year is coming out earlier. That will be released by the time the Minnesota State Fair happens. So our registration for the festival is open now, and we have held over the 10 years that event has taken place, we've had over 400 businesses that have been a part of that, 400 unique businesses. So that's an amazing thing to see, and we're all about helping those businesses so that they can sustain their success.
Sweet. Thanks, Elena. And then presenters, if you guys have any resources that you want to share with the people here today, feel free to drop them in the chat. For example, here, this is a guide to all of the resources Deed offers to entrepreneurs. So feel free to share that there. I'll collect those, and then I can also pass those along to any food entrepreneurs that I connect with in the future. Let's see here. Oh, and then our independent consultants. Let's connect with Victor Jones.
Good morning, Maddie and everyone. Great to be a part of this panel today. My name is Victor Jones. I'm the president and founder of Victor Jones Consulting, which I started in 2014. Prior to that, I spent many decades in F&B corporate, kind of right into the ranks of the industry, kind of culminating in a position with a very large hospitality firm, overseeing a number of their domestic operation stores and overseeing all of their international development. So I'm spending a lot of time traveling and actually a lot of time out of the country. 2014, I was honestly ready to spend more time in Minneapolis and the Twin Cities and get connected with community here. And so I started my business in 2014. Really specialized in F&B, specifically restaurants, hospitality. I've also expanded into consumer packaged goods. As Michelle has indicated, I'm part of the team with Elevate Hennepin, and I work with a whole bevy of advisors on supporting clients in the underserved space. I would also like to give a shout out to the good folks at the Good Acre, just from working with them personally. And Michelle will smile at this, but we had a client, literally, it was kind of the CPG dream and nightmare at the same time. They wound up getting an order for Target for 385 stores for their product, and they were operating out of a shared kitchen. And the great folks at Good Acre, and you can imagine how many, it was, I think the pallet count was over 100 pallets of product. And Staging was a huge issue. The good folks with the Good Acre were so accommodating for allowing this client to do all the staging for their product out of that location. So really a great organization. So excited to be part of the panel. That's it for now. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Victor. And finally, Kate LaBrosse.
Morning, everyone. I run a coaching and consulting business for founders of CPG companies. I tend to actually work with a lot of really early or emerging stage brands, everything from brand and product development to really figuring out what the long-term strategy is and then how to build a plan that will fit that. I've worked in natural CPG for about 16 years and have been on almost every side of the business, from buyer to broker to brand. And so I help brands really navigate and founders really navigate a very complex space and understand how to do business in this space and avoid many of the pitfalls that most early stage founders find themselves in. And then I'll just say that I'm also, I serve on the board of Naturally Minnesota. So pretty deeply entrenched with that. And then I am one of our 2 delegates that sits on the national board for the Naturally Network.
Great. Thank you, Kate. Okay, well, we have a handful of questions here that we're going to go through. And because we have such a large group of panelists, I'm not going to go in order like I usually do. If you'd like to chip in, please just go for it. So we'll have a discussion, and then we will save plenty of time for questions at the end. So if anyone has a question for one of the organizations here, feel free to, you can DM me, drop it in the chat, any one of those things. So first of all, I feel like food and ag has changed so much. I mean, given any period of time, it's one of the industries that's constantly evolving. So what does everyone think are the most significant advancements currently shaping the food and agriculture industries?
I can jump in. Kind of the 4 I've kind of put down as the major things is consumer demands are definitely changing, and everybody's trying to keep up to that. Just technology in general. Labor and talent shortages are making people shift and change and find new innovation. And the 4th one is government incentives when it comes to carbon capture and some of the sustainability efforts and those types of things. That's just the quick 4.
Good start. What else?
I'll jump in. Some of the ones, and I know AURI has a hand in some of these. You know, when it comes to some of the more local activations, I think, you know, local regional meat processing and mid-stage manufacturing are 2 areas that we're seeing be bottlenecks and or key unlocks for our local ecosystems. There's a certain amount of hubs being built. So Hormel is partnering with the U to build farm, FAARM in Mower County. Obviously, there's the MedTech 3.0 hub designation that we got nationally. I think the intersection of food is health and food is medicine will really start to play out more prominently in that space. And then there's the hydrogen hub with Xcel Energy in Heartland, and kind of along those energy lines, which gets into more of the agricultural products, you know, is Biomade and green energy and things like that, hydrogen. So Jason and Lolly can talk a lot more about that. I know just enough to be dangerous on those particular pieces. But then I would say also, you know, Embold is trying to build a sustainable protein hub, which really looks from, you know, feed to human ingredients and products as well. So not just alternative proteins, but more sustainable conventional proteins, whether that's, you know, crops that are going into feed or, you know, regeneratively grown and raised cattle, things like that. And then in the regenerative ag space, I think there's a lot of activity locally in Minnesota with Forever Green at the U, with a lot of the other activity that's happening here. And we're supporting some of that with FAI. So there's a lot going on. It really depends on what's your fancy. So
yeah.
And maybe just offer up a couple thoughts. You know, the 4 access points we deal with are access to expertise, access to training, access to capital, and access to scale. Those last 2 in particular continue to be, you know, gigantic challenges for early stage entrepreneurs. in the case of access to capital, it's both a combination of what's out there, but knowing how to get after it is one of the bigger challenges that we're trying to help the entrepreneurs navigate. And then on access to scale, as it relates to food manufacturing, the gap between the average shared commercial kitchen, if you call that 1X and you call a contract manufacturer that the likes of a General Mills would use 1,000X, that jump from 1X to 1,000X is gigantic. There's some neat projects going on. Neon is just going to break ground for a food facility in the fall. Upper Harbor seems to be moving along as well, but it remains a gigantic gap in the middle.
Maddie, I would take this a couple of different ways, thinking about it from the perspective of, what are the most significant advancements shaping the industry? And I'd couple that with some of the biggest challenges facing the industry. From a production ag point of view, some of the things we're thinking about are how can regenerative ag benefits be monetized to encourage farmer adoption? Along with that is the development of effective carbon markets, which we've heard a lot about, but haven't seen a lot of advancement in effectiveness. I'd also say that the role that ag product derived renewable energy plays in how agricultural production works, sustainable aviation fuel in particular, of which over the past year, a sustainable aviation fuel hub was just launched in Minnesota, with Delta Airlines being one of the marquee members. And then from a food point of view, things that we're really seeing in the industry shaping what's happening, obviously, is the integration of artificial intelligence, whether that's through product development acceleration, consumer research, or supporting personalized nutrition. And generally speaking, the food industry tends to be driven by consumer macro trends, which over the past probably 20, 25 years have really been most notably that of consumers' desire for more protein, while also reducing its climate footprint, hence less animal meat, more alternative protein sources. And then the other big trend has always been weight loss, which we've seen since the early 90s. Today, what that really looks like is it's focused around GLP-1 drugs to suppress appetite and the potential industry issue that represents. And today, we're also seeing a lot of consumer concern, which again started in probably the early 2000s, around transparency of the industry itself, around, and most notably, the consumer backlash against food processing and how quote unquote bad processing is for the health of the food and the health of the nation. So there's just some things that I would throw out there that I wouldn't necessarily call advancements as much as big shape-shifting challenges that the ag continuum is really experiencing.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Jason. Anyone else, any thoughts on advancements that you're seeing or trends that are sort of shaping today's companies?
I would say that one of the really big developments is the graying of the agriculture sector and how farmers look to make money off land that's been in their families for generations. So we're seeing, obviously a lot of wind and solar development taking land out of, well, especially the solar development taking land out of kind of the large scale farming and making people think differently about, cover crops, resting land for decades. How can you graze sheep and other livestock? Kind of multi-use renewable energy development. And that's a very big challenge for communities that are trying to reframe how their land is used. And it's can be quite a struggle with the way someone views themselves and their family.
So I didn't include this in my list of questions, but now that we're talking, I am sort of curious, who has like a specific example of, a piece of innovation they've talked about that, or maybe a specific effort or a specific company that you're seeing sort of put this stuff into action?
Well, I can add one real quick. Allison talked about the food as health or the food as medicine movement that we're really starting to see tick up in the national consciousness. Most notably, this year, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services held a conference focused on how to accelerate this idea of food as medicine and how it gets pulled into new policy, into the dietary guidelines for Americans, and how medicine, the medical and pharmacy industries are sort of starting to think about, it's a bit of caveated, but starting to think about how food might be included as a part of a treatment plan. That being said, to specifically answer your question, there's a company in the Twin Cities called Step One Foods, which has done an amazing job of living this idea. Step One Foods was started by a practicing cardiologist in the Twin Cities, Elizabeth Clotis. And the whole concept was her frustration with how the medical and pharmaceutical industries treat chronic health disease, particularly heart disease. And so her idea was to, rather than focus one at a time on her patients, was to create a food brand that developed specific products, clinically proven to reduce cholesterol as well as statin drugs like Lipitor. Still working to try and figure out how those can be incorporated into the insurance industry. But for, to think about all the side effects that go along with ingesting medications to treat heart disease, to think that you might be able to have a couple of bars a day that are dipped in dark chocolate to get the same benefit is a huge opportunity and a huge advancement in a space that could use some more support. So that's just one example that I'd share. Thanks, Maddie.
Good one. Yeah, thanks, Jason.
Jason, I just want to piggyback on that. Some of the numbers I've seen US wide is $2 trillion industry that ag could take from food, or ag could take from medicine in the form of, replacing pills. And for the most part, the medical industry, when you talk to them, are happy to give it up because a lot of things that food could solve are preventive, which leads into much more health issues. And so the one thing I think that Minnesota has maybe done a poor job at is here we are, really a global leader in food and medicine, but yet we haven't quite bridged that gap yet as well as I think we could.
And this is my biggest gripe with these two mega industries we have here.
Yeah.
How it's like two tankers moving in opposite directions and they do not communicate. So if anyone knows how to crack that code, please do share with the world.
Well, I would like to chime in a little bit and combine the two questions. One of the things that Renewing the Countryside focuses on is the sourcing aspect. So we think of our food show as, at its core, an ag show because we actually vet those businesses that are coming and ask them about their sourcing. We want to see those businesses becoming markets for the farms regionally. And we also very strongly encourage them to talk about their ingredient sourcing because we think the more there are definitely a cohort of consumers that care about ingredients and how food is grown. But I think that those businesses who have the attention on their packaging or website need to keep talking about that, and more consumers will, through that, learn about it. And one company that I think has done a fantastic job with both their sourcing and talking about their sourcing is Seven Sundays. They have kind of reinvigorated cereal in a wonderful variety of ways, including adding upcycling to one of their lines, which is a great sustainable trend spearheaded by Net Zero with a lot of spent grain from brewers and distillers. And repurposing into high protein products, and then the use of sunflower meal and oat from Oatly milk is just really a great, exciting trend. And I just think Seven Sundays has done a good job of talking about it, and they're just one example.
Good
Glad
one.
you brought them up. Seven Sundays has done a tremendous job in that, and upcycling is another trend. It goes up and down. It's kind of always there in the background. Different companies have done different things. It means different things to different people. Food waste is another big piece of the puzzle in the industry right now, as people are trying to think about how to reduce food waste, but also either, use alternative waste streams as new products or ingredients, or process them into value-added ingredients. So I think that's another interesting piece of the puzzle. In terms of local companies on the regenerative side, Thousand Hills Lifetime Graze is a cattle company. Tree Range Farms is a chicken company. Seven Sundays, I think, uses some grains from that. There's a handful of others. I can drop a regen brand list that's national, so it's not just Minnesota. But there's a lot happening in that space. Obviously, Kernza grain is going into a lot of different things, from beer to pasta to other things. So
Nice. Any other specific examples come to mind for anyone?
In the very different space is something like Solugen, which is just building their renewable chemical and fertilizer plant in Marshall, Minnesota, using some of the sugar, a product of an ethanol production plant, to then convert into a higher value and other products that are then renewable. And so there's been some media coverage on what they have going on there, but it's a few chemistry nerds, as they'll call themselves, from Houston area that figured out a way to really change a product and make it different. And they needed a source, and Minnesota and Marshall had a great source for their product. And so it could be fun industry to watch, and what they're doing and changing on how to make some renewable chemicals. So
on the ag waste side, there's a company called Swinergy, which is taking pig waste and turning it into fuel. And so they might also be involved in that sustainable aviation fuel pipeline as well. So they're another local one to watch. I think AURI has done some work with them.
Yeah, and a Launch Minnesota grantee.
There you go. So lots of fun companies around town doing lots of awesome things.
Lots of good stuff. So we've touched on some of the things that are currently shaping the food and ag startups, but what emerging technologies do you believe will have the most significant impact on the food and ag industry in the next, let's say 5 years?
Well, I work with a lot of small entrepreneurs in the idea stage. And I'll tell you, I think a technology that's accessible to everybody, and it's been mentioned earlier, there was OpenAI. What it brings to any business that gets comfort with using it. And again, I work a lot with startups or people looking to scale up, or restaurateurs that want to get larger. The ability or what it brings, whether it's food costing or menu development or marketing. I think OpenAI is super accessible for some of these really smaller businesses, and it just gives them a tool that really wasn't available a number of years ago to really help understand, grow their businesses. I think it has, we're seeing it already, but even more amazing potential.
Victor, I'll jump in on that. I think there's a lot of data that's being captured that isn't being able to be really truly used in many different aspects, all the way down to the producer or the farmer that's collecting a lot of information. And so I do think this AI or technology to really process that data and put it to use is going to be a game changer. There's lots of sensing, there's lots of data being collected, but only a very sliver of it is truly being utilized. So I don't know if that's where you're going, Victor, but that's just an add-on onto my thoughts on that area that I'm pretty excited about.
Yeah, I've got a couple of additional ones. Since we already talked about artificial intelligence, a couple of things that I'm thinking about in terms of emerging technologies. One would be treatment, some sort of treatment to decrease the climate footprint of animal agriculture, while also increasing the protein supply to feed this growing population. We keep hearing, well, we're going to cross the 10 billion people threshold here by 2050. And that population will require a significant increase in the amount of not just food we produce, but the protein we produce. And the animal ag industry continues to be vilified as a big contributor. And so we hear a lot about potential additives that ruminant animals can take to reduce the methane emitted during their burping, as an example. So I believe that this approach to decreasing the climate footprint of animal agriculture can contribute substantially to feeding the growing global population. The second one that I was been thinking about is since I spent about 2 years leading a packaging team when I worked for General Mills about 12 or 13 years ago, we started to really see this advance, but what I would call truly biodegradable or compostable food packaging that provides the same protection as petroleum-based plastic could be a game changer for the industry. It is a very, very tough nut to crack because there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lack of understanding around what compostable means and how it's certified. For instance, the packaging that you'll see called compostable today is only compostable in an industrial composting facility, of which I don't know where one exists or how to get my materials there. So it ends up in a landfill anyway, and actually turns out to be more harmful than the traditional plastic packaging as a result of how it's degraded in a landfill versus an industrial composting facility. So this concept of what truly biodegradable and compostable means, where you can throw it in your backyard compost pile, is a big nut to crack. But even more importantly, from a food safety and food waste point of view, is can it offer the same protection? Companies are continuing to innovate and find new ways to do it. The nut hasn't been cracked yet, but I think it's coming and will definitely be transformative for the food industry.
Nice. Anyone else? Emerging tech that's going to affect food and ag?
I think going back to the food as medicine and gut health realm around those, there's a lot, and this kind of ties into regen. They're looking at nutrient density of how food is grown and seeing really stark increases in the quality of nutrients and quantity of nutrients in products grown a certain way. And so I think there's going to be more as people talk about the customization for health and how do you really customize your own diet and eat for your own health versus just a general diet. I think there will be more and more that comes out on how you might be able to manage that.
Right. And a whole lot of research needs to be done to tie nutrient density with the benefits of regenerative practices.
I got a question on that. I mean, I hear it all the time from, a little more on the production side than I am on the CPG side. How do we measure quality, and does that have to change?
Yes, that's what I was just going to say, Sam. We need better methods of soil testing that really show the microbial activity, for example, in the soil in those regeneratively managed fields. So finding those kind of efficient tools is a big part of this. But yeah, the work by David Montgomery and his team out of Montgomery State, out of Oregon State, has been really exciting, and I hope to see more research replicating that.
Yeah, Elena, that's a really good thought. I know for instance, there's a company called Earth Optics that uses, if I'm remembering right, I can't quite recall, but it's using either satellite imagery or LiDAR to evaluate soil health by measuring I believe it's its carbon capacity, which does not require you to take samples, because right now all of that work is done on a sample basis that needs to be sent to a lab and analyzed, and it's expensive and costly and time consuming. So if it can be done real time through, again, the advent of artificial intelligence and so forth, there's a real opportunity here to make some inroads. to do exactly what you just talked about. And it's, again, it's starting. It's not there, but it's starting.
That's amazing. Can you put a link in the chat, or just put the company name in the chat? That would be great. Thanks.
I think it's testing up and down. It's on-farm testing, it's animal testing, and then it's the end product testing, whether it's the vegetables, the grains, the animal protein, or the finished product, CPG product. So there's testing at every point.
Yeah, I know that's an issue for the farms that are doing things in the best regenerative practice method that they can. But on their packages, they have to use the USDA database nutrient analysis. And that's not necessarily reflecting what's actually in their product. So that's been a frustration.
There's a couple things, Rise Bio, I put the link in there. Actually, I'm doing a test for them on my own farm, and the soil health and measuring the microbial side of things. So we'll see how that goes. But I think it's more on the consumer side of how do we tell the story of the nutrient density. We have a lot of labeling confusions that are happening of what does it mean to buy this or what does it mean to buy that. And we really start talking food as medicine. How do we really tell the right story of that quality? Because protein's protein, sugar, and there's good and bad of different types of proteins. There's good and bad of different types of sugar, and the way our packages today don't really give they give a flavor or an idea, but they really don't give the answer. And that's I think we're held up there.
Sam, that's a great lead-in, shameless plug at our conference focused on the market demand inside for this regenerative ag in October. One of the last panels of the day is taking both retailers and brands and Spins, which is a data company that pulls a lot of information from what's in the market, talking about just this messaging and the value prop, because I think organic was able to see how they could create enough of a WIFM for consumers to want to purchase at a premium price point, and that's where Regen still hasn't figured that out yet. So that will be one of the main discussion topics of that conference. So registration opens August 1st. Keep your eyes out.
I would add, maybe this is that category of nutraceuticals, but I think there's kind of I know there's always been a connection between nutrition and food and health. I think that's expansive of that, but I still think there's, I don't know how good the messaging has been on this. I mean, if you just even, and I know that theoretically the pivot may be away from some of the pharmaceuticals, but you really don't see it. I mean, if you're just an average consumer. So I do think there's an opportunity for maybe better messaging or promoting of this to the kind of the general public, to kind of, than maybe what it has right now, because I do think it's kind of known to some degree, but I really don't still think it's top of mind to the degree that it could be. I'll put it that way.
Victor, that's an interesting point. I'm glad you made it, because the other thing that I would argue as well in this space is how do you break through the traditional methods? And what you just talked about is from a consumer's not understanding how you could potentially treat disease with alternative forms of therapy. That's not incentivized by health insurance. So with that in mind, that's another big hurdle to overcome in this space of using food to preventatively treat disease and disease states. Is how do you adjust the industries that have already been built up? We see it in the food industry as well. How do you turn the ship around when the ship is gigantic and hundreds of billions of dollars? And so we're starting to see some of that. And especially with with increased access to open intelligence schemes and the internet and all of those great things, we've seen huge advancements with, let's call it home-based innovation that doesn't necessarily need to be done in a lab behind closed doors at the behest of a big company. And that's where we're going to continue to see big changes being made. If we can turn the ship around on some of these big institutional issues, then we'll see even more. But just wanted to call that out, as health insurance is a big proponent of this too. It's medical, pharmaceutical, and health insurance as sort of the three big pillars that need some level of adjustment.
Yeah. And I would chime in, as someone with a background in nutrition, I'm really excited to hear nutrient density as a commonly used phrase. And when was the last time the nutrition facts requirements from the FDA changed? So maybe part of this is figuring out some kind of a nutrient density number or calculation for foods that have lower things like lower added sugars that can boast a high level of nutrients and micronutrients relative to calories. So happy to see clean label products that employ regeneratively grown ingredients, and just want to see more of that.
Maddie, I
Love
see
it.
on the call, we have a couple people in the robotic and those types of world. And I think that's going to be a big change. I mean, what we've seen in the drone world has went from just taking a pretty picture to start a conversation with somebody to actually fully utilizing drone type work productive in agriculture today. I think the battery technology, and you talk about the next 5 years, I mean, the amount of money is being spent on electric automobiles is rippling down into, you know, the ability to use that in agriculture, specifically drones that, you know, now we're carrying 100-pound payloads instead of 60, and we can fly, you know, quite a distance, that it's just a part of, it's already a part of the system. And so example, my son, just this summer as an intern, he was required to get his pilot's license for flying drones. But there's a long ways to go because it's not paired with the ag side and application of products. So you have to go through a different system to get certified in that. But what's coming with autonomy and drones and batteries in the next 5 years are going to have a major impact on what we can do.
I was going to plug one on the autonomy side. I was just in Fargo yesterday, and they have their Autonomous Nation conference, really looking at row crop ag and things like that, and how robots and autonomous vehicles impact that and transportation as well. And so if that is of your interest, if you're on this call, I would definitely check out them for that. They bring together a lot of the leading minds and companies doing work in that space, and just a quick 3.5-hour drive west. So.
Awesome. Well, we have 10 minutes left, so I want to pause real quick. I have a lightning round question, but I wanted to pause real quick to see if anyone has any questions for our panelists. We'll do 10 more awkward seconds of silence. Everyone's just done such a good job of answering all the questions so far. So informative. Like you guys have done this before. Okay, so lightning round question. What piece of advice would you give to someone looking to get into the food and egg ecosystem today?
Well, I've read a couple of maybe quick ones. I mean, one is understand what you're getting into. I do work with a lot of small startups, and that's kind of the first hurdles is that, and that can be obviously as simple as just some, you know, canvas business planning or something like that. And the other one I would really say is understand the importance of profit. You know, it's amazing how many times we're looking at missions of organizations and the word profit doesn't appear anywhere. You know, so those are two, and start small would be what I would say as well too, because that really helps you with your capital outlay, which is always a big challenge typically a challenge for startup businesses.
So I'll piggyback on what Victor said and say in general, when we talk with folks who are thinking about starting a business, to really understand the numbers, to leverage resources, because we actually think it's a win if someone looks into it and then decides, oh, this is not a good fit, or this is not a viable business concern. And so really looking at that and understanding before you get too far into it. And so that's why Hennepin County, I'll do a shameless plug, offers these resources and encourages businesses to tap in early to understand profit and loss, profit margins, cost of goods sold, all of those sorts of things.
I'm going to jump in on that too. So first thing I do with all of my clients, so anything in the CPG business, I'll say specifically, if you're wanting to get into packaged goods, the first thing I do with every single client I work with is run them through my cost of goods and margin calculator tool. To show them what they will actually be making when they start to move through the distributor, wholesale, retail chain. When all of the fees and different discount structures and trade spends and everything else that gets taken out along that, and leaving enough room for what retailer expected margins are. It also shows them how much they can expect to make, you know, as their door count goes up, if we're talking about retail business. And it's Allison and I kind of joke sometimes that this tool is a little bit of like a dream killer for a lot of brands, because they get to see the reality of what it's actually like to do business in this space, and it's hard. And so the other thing that I would tack onto that is that if you are wanting to build a food business or any kind of CPG business, and you want to do more than, you know, sort of like a hobby business or farmer's market business or something like that, if you really want to truly build a regional or potentially national business, you need to really be thinking about category opportunity and where the white space is in the categories, where there's sort of consumer trends and interest and around some of the things we've talked about today, as well as a lot of other things, but be thinking about what you can bring that's additive or disruptive or innovative to the category. We don't need, on the whole, we don't need more of the same over and over again without any differentiation.
So what you should take away from the previous three smart speakers is the point that I was going to make, which is to hire the right expertise, not just people you like to work with. Because that will put you into the same position that you're in, because you don't have the right people. The way we used to say it in the corporate world is you need the right butts in seats, not just a butt in a seat. So it's really important to hire the right expertise and the skill set. Even if you have to pay more than you'd like, it'll pay off on the back end. And those of you on the call who have been working with me for a long time know that I cannot stress enough that if you're a food business, do not ignore or minimize food safety. It's the foundation upon which your entire business is built, and one failure can mean total business failure and even possible prosecution. That's meant to be scary, because it is.
Valid.
I'll +1 on everything that was just shared. You know, we often tell, especially CPG brands, like, start with the end in mind. You know, if you just love going to the farmer's market and selling and you can make profit that way, that's a great business. If you just want to be in some local retailers and, you know, maybe it's enough money to live on, and that's a great business, but you have to be realistic about your actual profit, the scale of which your category can go. And it takes, you know, stars aligning, luck, and a whole lot of other things to go right for people to ever achieve those kind of, you know, hundreds of $1 million exits. And they're very rare. So it's not the norm. I think we just see those stories pop out and people think, oh, that's going to be me. And it's not the reality. Regardless of whether you're a CPG brand or if you're on the tech side, whether it's food tech or if you're on farm, I think profitability and relevance, you know, a lot of people we see on the ag side want to get pilots and partnerships with some of the larger companies. And they often think, I have this great technology, I have all these things, why don't these companies jump on it? And we often have to remind them that you need to be solving a business need for these companies. They're not just going to do it out of charity and want to use you for funsies. So really being purposeful and intentional about, what are you solving? Is it going to be cheaper or have a much higher value proposition than their current solution that they're using? And it's not just about the cool technology. As a food scientist, we often would see in the background, like, people creating these awesome products and really delicious and fun things, but they don't serve any real need in the market. And I see the same thing happen up and down, you know, from engineers to other things where, like, but look at this cool thing it can do. And it's like, but it's not doing it well, or it's not needed, or it's not doing it at a price point that makes sense. So I think, you know, business use and profitability at the end of the day are what's going to be markers of success, which is very elementary, but people seem to forget about it. So.
You know, but I'll add a couple things real quickly. One is, as I said, I've kind of expanded into the CPG space. I really come from restaurants and hospitality, and I was surprised at how really, some respects, more complicated it is. You know, to really you know, and not only that, but you have the issue of cash flow as well too, which is different. Where oftentimes you're not being immediately paid for a product. You may have to wait weeks or months for it. You've got production concerns. It's a lot more complicated. And what I also always tell small businesses, just the financial part of it is, you know, pretty much in the industry, it's about sales, your product costs, your labor costs, and maybe any other fixed costs that you might have in managing those, or how do you find the resources or support to help you manage them. But often the toughest number to get is the top line sales piece. And I always tell people, just never lose sight of sales. You know, if you have a well-run business and you can get sales, your modeling's good, you can really do well. But I think very often people underestimate the sales challenge and don't go into it realistically.
A couple things: you better have grit and high risk tolerance if you're going to start in a business. Often somebody thinks they have a great idea, and why won't somebody just invest in it? Well, have you leveraged your house yet? Have you leveraged your car? I mean, that's the risk tolerance if you really believe in your product, that you're going to need to jump in before you start getting others to jump in. I think customer testimonials are huge, and understanding the difference between their testimonial of what they want versus what they need, which a couple of you touched on the need part. I think that's critical because there's a lot of people with a lot of ideas and products that, yeah, that sounds fun. I'd take that, but is that something they'd really open up their checkbook and buy as a purchaser of that product? And then as working with entrepreneurs, a lot on the startup side that reach out to Green Seam looking for the next thing, they're not as clear on what their goals are. They're not as clear on what their product can actually do. There's not enough clarity on some of the values and where they're going to go. And it's hard to get to that next step if you don't know where they're going to go. And the simple idea is, are you just want to have licensing to grow your farmers market presence, or do you want to have licensing to be in our, you know, large retail side? And it's the same on, you know, technology company. Are you really going to build that new piece of farm machinery, or do you want to license or sell that patent to others? And people aren't clear on that, and maybe they don't know yet, but I think it's really hard to get to the next step when you're not sure of really where you want to go. So try to be clear on what you really, what's negotiable, and be clear on what's not negotiable of where you want to take your business.
I would add too that, and again, I'll talk about the importance of being able to see your modeling works, at least mathematically, right? And that makes sense and has reality to it. I think it's the importance of doing your projections. I mean, to kind of like see, and that really helps to help. I agree with you totally on the risk factor. And for me, a lot of it is how much risk you're willing to take and how can you mitigate your risk. I think a lot of it is just really having sound modeling, right? That's, you know, even if it's 3 different scenarios, you know, best to worst scenario as well too, to really help people understand that. Because a lot of, I see so many people like that it's kind of the ready, fire, aim approach to getting their business going. And then they get these really unfortunate surprises down the road when, you know, the financial modeling they didn't do isn't working out for them and put them in a bad space.
So many good thoughts here. I would echo much of it. I would just say, think about how you want to show up in the space, how you want to be a leader in terms of your sourcing, your business practices, how you treat your employees, and all of those specifics. But yes, think about where you want to be. Is this a small business? Is it focused on growth? So.
Wonderful. Well, with that, I think that's a good place to end it. Thanks, Elena. We are at time. So thank you everyone for a wonderful conversation this morning. We appreciate you joining our conversation on food and ag. This is recorded, so I will send it to you and you can share it with all of your entrepreneurs who might want to learn more about resources in your industries. But thank you all again for your time. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, Maddie.
Thank you.
Good to see you all. See ya.